Hey, hello there. Wearing a mask because at the time of this taping, we're still dealing with the COVID crisis or the COVID pandemic or the COVID epidemic, whatever you want to call it. We all know it's a problem. But anyways, for the record, I have my vaccine, both of them, so I'm good to go. But I want to talk to you today about something that's really important. It's this idea of us somehow working together. United we stand. And of course, being united was something that our founding fathers really had an interest in. And when they put together the preamble to the Constitution, they thought about this in many ways. And they said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves, our posterity, to ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. That's the preamble. That sets everything up that comes after that. And that's how these founding fathers of ours really thought we should be thinking. So, over the years, we have followed the leader. We have followed the leader. And we've had some good leaders and we've had some bad leaders. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm just going to talk about the consequential ones in our most recent history. And let me talk about George Washington. In his farewell address, 1796, he said that it was really important for Americans to be thinking about how to be good citizens. So he wrote, "To friends and citizens." And he really warned people about geographical sectionalism, political factionalism, and interference by foreign powers in the nation's domestic affairs, because he thought it would threaten the stability of the republic. He urged Americans to subordinate their sectional jealousies to common national interests. And he was so strong about it that he kept making that something right to his dying days. His letter to friends and citizens is read at the beginning of every Senate session in the United States every year, as a reminder to senators and others about how important it is to work together. So if I can talk about our contemporary influencers and leaders, I have to start with John F. Kennedy. In his inaugural address, January 20th, 1961, this might have been before you were born, I happen to remember it. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. He was really talking about a unified government, a unified country, people coming together. And what Kennedy was really advocating at that time was this idea of serving the country, serving government, being a part of government. We are government. He knew it. The government isn't some buildings in Washington or even elected officials. It's really us. And he was appealing to Americans to take interest in their government. And so let me skip forward a little bit to this man. Some people call him the great communicator. We all know him as Ronald Reagan. He was a president of the United States. And through most of his time, he had said things that were either very inspiring or in some ways deflating. But there's one thing he said that has stuck with us more than anything else. And you have to keep in mind that presidents make statements that become policies in some way. And here's what he said. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." He was promoting political division. He was promoting the downscaling, the reduction of government. Believed that big government was not necessary. That's still with us today. There's many people who believe that, even though many of you benefit from government. You don't drive on private highways, you drive on government highways. The fire department who puts out your fire works for the government. They don't work for a private company. I could go on and on and on. Government is us. We are the government. So fast forward to Barack Obama, January 20th, 2009. Another consequential statement by a consequential president. Consequential in a number of ways. One, he was black. The first black president. The first non-white male to be elected to this office. And what he said during that time was something that he believed was important for this country. On this day, we gather because we have chosen hope over fear, unity of purpose over conflict and discord. What he was saying is we need to move towards unity, towards purpose, towards overcoming conflict and discord, and to overcome fear. He was not a fear-mongering president. So let me jump forward to January 20th, 2017, President Trump's inaugural address. Remember this? I'm sure you do. Make America great again. As if maybe it was great at one time and isn't now. And then this American carnage stops right here and stops right now. Defiant, attack, really promoting this idea of somehow changing the very concept of our government from within. So the most recent inauguration was by Joseph R. Biden Jr. on January 20th, 2021. And you'll see where I'm going with this. I have just taken the sacred oath on an oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us. And we, the people, we seek a more perfect union. Again, coming back to this idea of becoming unified, unity. And there's good reasons to have unity. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. And if you think about this, we have external and internal threats that we as people, as a government, we have to deal with. The external threats are combating terrorism, trade and economic security, nation states that will try to undermine our American elections, transnational criminal organizations, the threat of illegal and mass migration. Those are our external threats that the Department of Homeland Security has identified. But we also have internal threats: domestic violent extremism, exploitation of lawful and protected speech and protest, cybersecurity threats from nation states and non-state actors, natural occurrences that continue to harm the life and property of Americans. So those are the external and internal threats that the Department of Homeland Security is watching for us right now. Well, the most recent natural event that has changed all of our lives is the COVID-19 epidemic. It'll take years until the political analysts figure out what the pandemic has done to our democracy. What's really come along is that there are many conspiracy theories now that have developed. Hate speech around COVID-19 has added to this conspiratorial kind of environment. And social media and people who are anti-government in general have jumped into it. So what do we have here? We have a situation that is really kind of a double-edged sword. We've got a pandemic and we've got people who don't trust the government. COVID-19 deepened the division within the U.S. society, and the pandemic became intertwined with the powerful mix of politicization, misinformation, polarization that was already suffocating the public's trust in government in one way or another. Keep this in mind. 40% of the protest in 2020 had been related to COVID-19. Some people forget about it. They think it was about Black Lives Matter, so those kinds of things. But 40% of the protests were about COVID-19. Many people don't want to participate in the COVID-19 vaccination, for instance. In our democracy, we have an opportunity right now to unify. And the current president has the opportunity to demonstrate unity, to strengthen institutions, to model competent governments in response to existential public health threats. And as the graph had depicted, vaccinations have been going up in this country, as much as 4 million a day. So people are believing in the government and are finding a solution, a common solution. We can all vaccinate. We can all take the vaccine. And together, that provides unity in a way to deal with this pandemic. Now, some people don't want to deal with it. There is a fear factor that exists in America. But the greatest threats most of us now face are largely of our own design. Lifestyle choices such as driving too fast, or smoking, or drinking, or eating too much, those kinds of things. But we have a lot of psychological anxiety in our country. It's increased, probably in fact because it's an uncertain world. There's less long-term jobs. There's less financial security. There's less long-term emotional security. There's more technology. And our helplessness and frustration in this time is global. We're dealing with modernity on a scale that we've never seen before. Many people feel disenfranchised. So what are we going to do here? How can we get there? We need to get to a point where the truth can be said. George Orwell, who, as many people know, wrote 1984, had a number of observations about what could happen with regard to the truth. He said, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. And what we have now are alternative facts. We have people saying that authoritarianism is good. Forget democracy. Authoritarianism. Higher status belongs to white people. Forget all of the gains that have taken place in this country in terms of giving everybody civil rights. Prejudice against ethnic and religious minorities is okay again, according to alternative facts. You know, if you don't like their religion, you can beat them up, whatever. Racial and ethnic isolation is back. People want to push these people away. And if you're deprived in any way, if you feel deprived in any way, you can be angry about it. You can get as angry as you want. You can carry a gun. You can intimidate people. You can do whatever you want because you have a right to be angry, somebody says. These are alternative facts. In unity, we don't do these kinds of things. We don't promote these kinds of things. We do the opposite because it's important. So we're in a brave new world here. We're becoming afraid to talk to one another. And thanks to the internet and smartphones, we're connected 24/7 with oftentimes ill-founded thoughts, opinions, fears from millions of different sources. The media is transforming every passing problem into a global catastrophe. People are taking drugs to deal with their anxiety. Think about this. 40 million Americans are suffering from anxiety disorders right now. So what are we going to do? What can we do? Well, we need a 21st century education. And what is that? It's critical thinking, problem solving, reasoning, interpretation. It's research, it's practice, it's questioning. It's curiosity, being creative, using imagination, being innovative, learning to express personal feelings in ways. It's perseverance of self-direction, planning, it's self-discipline, it's adaptability, it's oral and written communication, public speaking, speaking to others in public, leadership, teamwork, collaborative cooperation, global awareness. Yeah, being concerned about something outside of our country is a big part of where we are today, folks. It means that we have to have literacy with computers and technologies and understand science and environment in the way it is taught by scientists, not by people who are political. We need to have civic, ethical, and social justice, and we need to have literacy about it. We need to have multicultural literacy. You heard me talk about cultural competency. We need to be competent about other cultures. And we need to have financial literacy. We need to all become a part of this economy in one way or another and understand if the Federal Reserve does something with their interest rate or the taxes are lowered for somebody, it's going to have an impact on you and me. And we should pay attention to that. All of these things are important. 21st century education. This is what we need to do for ourselves, we're never too old to learn, and for others. I started teaching in 1976. I've seen many generations come through my college classrooms in that time frame. And what I've learned over that time is that this current group of people have many of these skills already adopted. And that the problem is not with people who are millennials and zillennials, it's people like us. It's people like us. So we need to make a change. So what do other people suggest for unity? This is something that I went out and asked people And I think maybe some of their comments could add to what I've just offered you. So take a few minutes and listen, please, to what other people have said, and think about what you think would bring us closer to unity. Here we go.
Well, I'd say the first thing people have to do is just be open to listening to each other. You know, it seems to me that when people of differing viewpoints get together, there's not any really mutual conversation. It's all kind of, I've already made up my mind, I'm not listening, you know. And I think it would be nice to have some kind of common source of, what's the word I want to use, truth, fact, you know, that we could discuss. You know, it seems that depending on where people get their news or get their information really determines a lot of what they think. And there's no ability to kind of think outside of that. And whether it's on the extreme right or the extreme left, you know, there's got to be, you know, some common ground, you know, some common group of information that we can relate to.
Just make your voice heard. I mean, get involved in the system. Don't sit back and complain about it. Get involved in the system, you know, get out the vote. I mean, that's really the way we make change. And it takes time. It's slow. It doesn't happen overnight.
One thing that comes to mind for me is to see if we can try and stop, or I guess really combat misinformation. I think a lot of times people will hear things secondhand or read things online and they just accept them as fact, when it's really important to actually double check things and make sure that they are, you know, factually based. So, you know, maybe for me, I think that education is just the most important thing. It leads to healthier people, it leads to happier people, it leads to people, you know, I think getting along in the long run. So that's one thing that I think I've noticed a lot. You know, I see people getting in arguments on social media about this or that, and just without really having any evidence to back up what it is that they think, other than that they heard it somewhere. They want to believe it, but we really need to try and stay, you know, based in reality and based in fact.
I think that people's instinct when they see something that's different from them or something they don't understand is to reject it and to be fearful of it. And I think maybe people need to instead try to embrace that and learn from it, and also look at themselves. Why does this make me uncomfortable? Or why do I feel afraid of this? And try to kind of dissect their own feelings of what's actually making them feel that way, versus just trying to immediately reject anything that doesn't fit something that they understand.
I don't think that the American people are as separated as we really believe. Again, if you look at key issues, yeah, there are some issues that we are divided on, but in general, I don't think we're as divided, and it can be fixed.
I think the premise is, you know, we used to accept the idea that there were two rights. There could be two rights and there could be two wrongs. Now, if you're right, the other person's wrong without even the benefit of a discussion. And there is this furious intent to be right. And, you know, it's really gotten our way. For example, we have a pothole problem. I think people could say, yeah, absolutely we do. For some reason, the potholes, much like the mask and anything else that's tangible, now becomes a political discussion. And we can't seem to find some common ground because somebody's solution is the right solution. And the truth of the matter is, somewhere in between lies an answer. That used to be what made this country great. You know, strong, passionate arguments, and then somewhere you find a common ground. I
mean, we need to take the politics out of our political system. The founders were worried about sectionalism, and so their worst fears, I think, have come true. that the political parties are causing this disunion, when in reality it's not as bad.
I always felt like if any political party was too happy, there was probably something wrong. That should always be the premise of our public policy. I mean, you could look at Obamacare as a recent example of that. You know, when you have one party that votes on it and the other party doesn't, before the ink is dry, you already know it's a point of contention. The other side isn't even attempting to make it work simply because they have no vested interest, like zero, none. And let's face it, from a political policy standpoint, the vested interest is a vote. So when you have zero, now you're out immediately to prove the other person wrong. And that's just spilled over into everything. The mask is good. No, it isn't. The mask is bad. Yes, it is. I mean, everything now is a violent argument with no middle ground. How about maybe the mask is good in crowded circumstances? Maybe the mask isn't necessary when people are sparse and few in between. Why can't there be two rights to that? Not anymore. It's all or nothing. And when you start telling somebody they're wrong, they feel it a personal attack. I used to think of those as learning opportunities. You know, I think the people I engage with the most are people who I oppose politically. I engage, I learn, I listen. On occasion, I even change my position, or I at least find some common ground. But I always felt like I'm better educated because I understand where the other side's coming from. And I think that is the premise of this whole piece. I don't need to be right. I just need to be heard. And if I honestly believe that you're listening to me and understanding my position, I'm okay with that. I don't need to be right. I just need you to hear me. That's where I think we're wrong at, Ziggy. I really do. We don't even listen. We don't hear. We just talk and we're right. The other person's wrong. Listen to me. Listen to me. Don't hear me. Listen to me. You're wrong. I mean, it's personal. It's not even political anymore. It's personal. And that's where I think the country's coming apart at the seams. Everything is personal.
There's a lot of things could be done, starting with it, educating people. And we're talking about children. Children are not born racist. This is something that they learn, at all levels, but especially this starts at home. We need to do a better job, first of all, educating our young adults that we are a society of many. We are a true melting pot of many, many, many. You go to a large city and you will see a small United Nations in many places. Yeah, do they speak different languages? Yes. But we should not see these people as our enemies. We need to do a better job at trying to accommodate the needs of many.
One of the problems with race relations is that, especially in a small town up in northwest lower Michigan, some people have never met a black person, or they very seldom know black people. But once they do get to know people, they realize we're all the same. So let's really communicate and get together.
People that come to this country, especially internationals, that they come to this country, they come here because they love this country. They see a land of opportunity. Now, this is something that I just cannot understand sometimes when I see the people that are here, that if you really think about it, many of the people that live in this country their ancestors came from other countries, and we so easily forget that our grandparents or great-grandparents came from another country and they faced discrimination or many things that the local people, the new people are seeing nowadays, and easily forget that those people came from somewhere. We need to look at them as elements that are going to help our society be greater. Everybody has something to contribute. We cannot see people that are coming to this country, someone who's going to take my job. We see a person who's going to potentially create a job. We need to be more proactive about embracing these people and embracing their ideas, because you know what, there isn't such thing as a bad idea. Out of many, many, many ideas, some great idea will come out of it. But again, it goes back to how parents are raising their children. Children will imitate and listen to their parents, clearly. And what they hear from them is what they're going to repeat and believe. And that, is a huge, huge step that we need to be careful how and what we say to our children. Because if you teach hate, children will learn hate. And that's basically boils down to. I see this too often, and I am a member of a family that we have some people that I hear sometimes, my extended family in the United States, I hear people that they say things and I just shake my head and thinking, you do realize that you're talking in front of me and I come from another country, and they always say, but you're different. No, the other people. Well, no, the other people is not the same, because I am that person. I came here to get an education and I worked hard and I picked up jobs that nobody wanted and I paid for my college. But when I hear people saying, well, I'm not talking to you, the other people, because you're different. No, we're all the same. But I was given an opportunity, and my parents instilled in me work ethic. And that's what we don't have. When things are not well, nowadays we blame somebody else. You do not do well your job, well, it's because somebody else in your job did something against you. No, that's not how it works. If I'm not doing something well, I want it fixed, and I want to be the number one person in that job. I don't want to blame somebody else, so I'm number two by default. Okay?
I don't think we're as divided as sometimes we're led to believe. 70% of Americans think that some sort of common sense gun regulation makes sense. 70% of Americans think that this infrastructure plan makes sense. 70% of Americans think that we need to get money out of politics. So it's really 30% of the country that's controlling the debate.
I think it needs to be more focus on the collective, the community, the culture, and embracing our differences, and being so less focused on, being more compassionate, more empathic to others who are different from us, because different isn't bad, different is just different. And different is what brings depth and quality to life.
You got to talk. I mean, you got to communicate.
Bringing people together of diverse opinions is a real challenge. And I'm speaking to you now from 40 years of experience in technical sales. Mm-hmm. And, the first thing out of anyone's mouth that's a customer is no, and rejection, and pushing you away. And you have to be able to overcome that. And there's a couple of tools that I've used in the past that may be beneficial, to the folks who are watching this video. The one I use is an analogy that's called peeling the onion. So when you sit down to talk to someone who might have a differing viewpoint from what you have, just sit back a little bit and tell them, it sounds like that's an important issue to you. Tell me more. Let me know a little bit more about why you're so passionate about that. Let me know a little bit more about why that's important to you. And as you peel that onion, each layer of the onion, don't stop. Try to just keep going. Get them talking. Because you know what happens? As they're talking, they'll start to realize that maybe their position isn't as strong as they thought it was. And that's been one of the tools that I've used over the past. And it's interesting to watch people literally talking themselves out of a misconceived notion. And that's what we're up against. We're up against a lot of things, labels that have been used on both sides. That's one of the things that we need to do. We need to communicate. We need to think and listen more than we need to tell. And that's the other point. When you've got a great product that you really believe in, something that is very important to you, it's only natural to jump right into advocating for that. Right in and let me tell you why you should like this. And, the pushback is there. So instead of advocating right away, listen to learn. Don't listen to respond, listen to learn. Because I think what you'll find is we're not that far apart. We're not that far apart in a lot of things. There's a lot more things that we can agree on than disagree on. And that's pretty much it, Ziggy.
So you've heard other people offer their opinions. and you have some opinions too. I urge you to talk with other people about what you think and listen to what they say. But don't close the door if what they say is different. Just listen, start talking, look for unity. Where can we find common ground? Where can we find common space? We the people need this. Thank you. And remember, we're still at the time of this dealing with COVID, and if you haven't gotten your vaccine, probably be a good idea to get it, probably save your life, and probably will stop this pandemic from spreading. So anyways, thank you for tuning into A to Zig. It's been a pleasure sharing this with you. Look forward to seeing more of our programs, or go back and see some of the other programs we've done on YouTube. Thank you so much. Have a great, great American thought about unity. See ya.